Been waiting in the water, just trying to survive. But God said there's more for me, more than staying alive. I'm stepping into power, into what was always mine. Divine joy rising, it's my time to shine.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are you all? Oh, I'm so glad to be here with you today on this Thursday. We have the last day of April. I had to look at my calendar and make sure I knew what I was talking about. Because, honey, I'm telling you, when you retire, these days just run into one another. But anyway, it's good to be here with you on the PA Empowerment Network. I am Diane Butts. I'm the host of Daughters of Divine Joy, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today, daughters. We're on a little late today, but it's okay. Sometimes it happens. But anyway, I want to come here with and I've been thinking about this and I really prepared this ahead of time. Sometimes inspiration comes at the last minute, and sometimes it's just there, God drops it in my spirit before time. And so I wanted to talk to you about seasonal timing. um and if you are a Bible reader, Christian Bible reader, you may be familiar with Ecclesiastics, the third chapter. And I'm not going to read it all, but it said there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Time to be born, a time to die, time to plant, time to uproot, a time to kill, time to heal, tear down, and a time to build. So it goes through the thing: weep, laugh, mourn, dance, scatter stones, and to gather them. There's a time in life for everything. But the dilemma for some of us is knowing what time you're in. Because if it's time for you to let things um to scatter, and you gathering stuff, and you're in the wrong time, you're in the wrong season, you're doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Um and sometimes that's hard for us to discern. And so I want you to understand that discernment has to do with spiritual wisdom and knowing, and being able to tap into the rhythm that God has for you at this particular time in your life. Um, Recognizing what season you're in helps you to understand what posture you need to be in. Okay. If there's the season of laughter, that's joyful. And then sometimes there's a season of sadness that you go through. Maybe you're grieving something, there's a loss. Could be not necessarily death, but a time for um some close friend of yours has moved away, or perhaps there's a job that you wanted to have and you didn't get it. Okay, you interviewed, you hoped, you dreamed, you prayed, you did all these things, but you didn't get the job. And so, yeah, there's a little grieving that goes on. Um, so there's many other circumstances in which things happen and you may not understand at that moment what God is doing. And so discernment is when you just take a little time to sit with this thing and try to reflect on it and listen. You can pray, but also listen. Sometimes we want to pray because we want to be the ones telling God what it is we need, what it is we want, but we don't stop to listen, because God does answer prayers. And now your answer may not come when you say, when you pray the prayer. It may come a little later, but you should always take time to listen. Because that's how communication works, right? Somebody talks and then you listen. And you listen for that person to have their say. And the thing with God is you may not always hear what God says, but you have to discern it through watching the signs and what's going on. I had an interesting meeting today with some church leaders, and we're organizing ourselves as a committee that will support people who are discerning what God is doing in their lives and who God is leading them to serve in this season of their life. And it's interesting because when the lead pastor said, well, maybe we can go to Patterson and start, do X, Y, and Z. That's my hometown, Patterson, New Jersey. And so I thought to myself, well, I don't know what you would do there. It's only, I think, just one Presbyterian church right now. Um, and so towards the end of this lunch meeting, my friend's name came to mind, and I said, you know what? I have somebody I want to talk to. I said, they're pretty much, I said, they're one of the leaders of the ministry that I had started there, Greater Faith Works. And I said, so let me talk to her. It was funny. I gave her a call on the ride home, and I just, asked her a question. And her response was, "Oh my God, this is God. You don't. This is God. I'm about to cry. I can't believe you're saying this." I just got finished telling us, these some another friend of ours about this yesterday, about how I feel there's something more that should be doing, and God is calling me to do something about it and do something with this feeling. Um, so excitedly, by the time I got home, I had to text the lead pastor and say, I got our first person. And he was like, praise the Lord. As I told you, the people out there, God is already working on folks. We just need to know when to open our mouths and say what we need to say and approach the person. And so I'm so glad that I didn't leave. It didn't say, oh, she wouldn't be interested. Oh, she's not a church person. Oh, I don't think she's interested in ministry, which I could have said any of those things and might have been right. But what I didn't know is what God was already doing. And so I'm giving you an example of what happens in the seasons of someone's life. Um, I remember when I went back to work after COVID, I was already, not liking my job, and I had a few plans to, maybe I would go to another school district, maybe I would try for an additional job or transfer somewhere else. It's all these other plans I was thinking, and maybe I could have. But when I went back after COVID, let me see, we went in March, probably towards the end of March. And by the end of April, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And it was just like, I'm not doing it. It's not that I can't do it. I'm not doing it. I'm out of here. And went and told my husband, he said, just make sure you can do it monetarily. And I said, well, I may have to work because I need, I may have to work. But anyway, I'll do that. I'll work somewhere else. I'll do something else. I don't have to make as much money because, my money from my pension will make up the difference of what I was making and what I would have lost by working, especially in this area of Pennsylvania. Anyway, and so that season changed for me. But the thing was, I understood I was really supposed to just stop working and trust God for the rest. But I kept working because that's what I know to do is work. I kept working from job to job to job. The running joke was, what you doing this week? Because I would quit a job just as quick as I would get a job. Because the thing about being retired, even if it's semi-retired and you have an income coming in, you ain't got to listen to nobody talk about nothing. Okay. And so it wasn't because the job got too hard, but when it was too much nonsense on the job, I was in a position to say, I don't want to deal with this. I just stay on a job I had two jobs that I stayed for over a year, for about a year each, one over a year, one was approaching a year. But the last job I had was the last job I had. Okay. Them people treated me so bad. I was like, you know what? Almost came to blows with the supervisor, a man. And that's when I said, I need to go. I said, Lord, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I'm holding on this little piece of job when you telling me trust you. And so I walked out of there and I trusted God. And I, I ain't even there was nothing I needed to worry about. I was just so used to working. And I wasn't just a person that had a full-time job. I had a full-time and sometimes I had as much as four part-time jobs on the side. I hustled. I hustled. That's what I knew to do. So that's what I did. But once I released that, it was a whole different situation. And I was so glad that I finally realized it was time for me to let it go. Let it go. Mm-mm-mm. And my granddaughter was here. She'd be singing right now. So let's get into this. Sometimes you get frustrated because you feel like you're out of sorts or out of alignment. And what it is that you are not doing what you need to do in the season for which you're in. So discerning what season you're in is the hard thing. It's the point, that's what you really have to reflect on. That's what you need to sit with for a while so that you can name what season you are in. And it's okay. You can love God and question your season. You can be faithful to all that you know how to be faithful to and still question your season. Because sometimes, beloved, we don't know. We don't understand where we are. We just know we feel out of sorts. We feel out of balance. We're not in alignment. And we're off. We need a change. We need to do something. We need to transform in some kind of way, but we're not sure what. So the first thing we need to do is tell the truth about what we're feeling and where you are. I was struggling with those jobs because I was supposed to be sitting my behind down somewhere and letting the Lord lead me. But I wasn't going to do that because it didn't have any money and sitting down. And I wanted the money because I was used to having a certain amount and I wanted that. So you have to honestly sit down and talk about where you are in your life to properly be able to discern um, that situation. How did I get here? Maybe you were unemployed, not by anything you did, but you just happen to lose your job. Um, you're struggling in your relationship. You may have to sit down and say, what is this all about? And you may even have to ask the hard question, is this person really for me? Is this relationship supposed to be this difficult? And answer the question. Answer it honestly, because the answer may be yes, this is my person. Yes, because of X, Y, and Z, the qualities they have, the intelligence he has, the way we're comfortable with one another. It could be a lot of things. But sit down with the, me, myself, and I. You sit down with yourself, sit down with God, and discern where you are. Sometimes during grief, when we lose a loved one, especially, we need to really discern. We need to sit down and realize I am hurt, I'm in grief, and I'm having a hard time. Because once you do that, then you may see, you know what, let me go ahead and be in the fields and get through this time. Maybe you need to have a counselor, a pastor, a faith leader, or a therapist help you to get through it. Then do that because that's your season that you're in. See, in the season, God sometimes is growing you. God is removing you from a situation that no longer serves you, or God could be pruning you, okay, reshaping you for a new season. Okay, so you have to be able to name that. The questions I want to ask you is what have you been misnaming in your life? Um, Also, sometimes we think that, oh, this is just a period or just a phase. But is it temporary or is this something that I need to really look into and spend some time with it so that I can get through it properly? Okay. And what am I trying to revive that God said, let it rest? Because sometimes we want to do that work so badly. We want something so bad. Sometimes you gotta wait. Sometimes you need to be patient. Sometimes you need to go sit down. Let it rest, you go rest and let it come to you. I got a whole story about that too, but I'm gonna leave that alone because we'll be here at 9 o'clock tonight talking about that one. Okay, so understand every season has a posture. Wisdom is not just knowing what time it is, but what to do and how to stand in that season. Okay. Um, so in Ecclesiastics, they name a whole lot of different things. You know, there's a time to speak and a time to be silent. There's a time to plant and a time to pluck it up. There's a time to for things to be born, and there's a time for death. And it does not mean actual living, breathing, you know, you no longer being on this plane, does not mean things as in people have to die, but sometimes the relationship is die and it needs to go ahead and die. Sometimes there's one new one being born, but the new one can't be born until you get rid of that old one. You know, that's our own theory. If you grabbing on like this to something that's dead, then you can't open up your hands to receive the new thing. You got to be open and ready. And so sometimes we hold on to things way too long. And whatever wants to come to us can't, because we got a death grip on something that's been dead a long time ago. Seasons require movement, and sometimes they require restraint. Sometimes they require courage, and sometimes they require that you rest. But seasons have different rhythms to them, and it's about you understanding where you are so that you know how to be in that season. Okay. So I will say, I'll share this with you. I know I'm in a season of contemplation, and so I'm being quiet about some things. There's some things I'm working on, there's some things I'm thinking about and contemplating, and I'm researching the viability of these things. And so, but I'm not talking about them to anybody other than my husband. And that's because I'm not ready to share them. I'm not ready to birth them. It's not time for them to come to fruition. And so they're in the contemplation stage. And that's okay. You don't have to tell everybody everything. Some things you keep to yourself and let God work it out, because I know that you can share something with the person and then you hear something that you wasn't expecting, a negative reaction, and next thing you know, you just letting it go by the wayside because somebody told you that it was ridiculous, or somebody said, "How you going to do that?" and question your ability to do it, or somebody couldn't see the vision. Your vision was not a conference call, it was what God gave you. They don't have to see it. Okay. So sometimes you put boundaries around your dreams and boundaries around the things that you feel God is calling you to, because it's not your season to share it with anybody. If there's anybody out there that understands what I'm talking about, you can give us a call today. The number is 570. I can get my little paper, 664-0574. Give us a call. Are you in a season and you don't know what to do about it? Is there something that you've been struggling with and you can't understand why this thing is being so difficult? Is there something that's scaring you right now and fear has got you full of anxiety and you feel like you're stuck, like you're walking in quicksand and you can't get yourself together, it can't shake it? Let's talk. Okay. So now the third thing I want to talk to you about. We know that we must discern and be honest about what it is and where we are in our seasons, and we must also understand. Um, Right, the Lord Jesus, I just forgot that every season has a posture. So every season has a way to stand in that season. And you need to know that as well. And you need to know these things because sometimes God is doing things and you are not in control. I'm going to say this again. Everything that happens to you is not always in your control. And and that's not a bad thing. And it's not a bad thing because sometimes God is preparing you for something that you don't even understand is coming. Could be a blessing, could be a job promotion, it could be a move to another place. It could be a person coming into your life that's going to be the best thing that ever happened to you. It could be a move for an opportunity that's going to be presented to you that's not even on your mind right now. It could be that God's preparing you for a loss that you never saw coming and instilling you with the strength to be able to move through that loss, to deal with those feelings and come out on the other side just brand new and full of joy and strong and able and resilient and resilient. Mm. I want you to understand that sometimes fear can be dressed up in what we call persistence. It's like you keep doing the same thing, and it's like you're banging your head against the wall, but you keep doing it. And the only reason why you keep doing it is because you're afraid to not have that thing in your life. And I don't care how big the church hat you put on fear, it is not going to be persistence. It is never going to yield to what persistence yields. If it's something that's not for you, you have to have the courage to leave it alone. When I first just started understanding the power boundaries, it was when I had someone, I told y'all the story, someone who I probably had stopped dating, should have stopped dating 2 years before, asked me what I was cooking when they came to see me after I had surgery. Why would I be cooking for you after I have surgery? Why? Because you expect me to give. You always expect me to give and not concern myself with me, my needs. And you weren't concerned with my needs. And at that moment, I knew I could live without you. It was real easy. And it was fear. I didn't want to be alone. And I knew that. I could name that. I told anybody. I don't know why I keep messing with them, but I just don't feel like being alone right now. So when I finally feel like it's not worth it, then I'll leave them alone. And in that moment, I left them alone. It was real easy. When I say door, when I closed that door, the door was closed all the way. So I'm telling you, when you have these sit downs with yourself, and when you reflect on why you are in the place that you are in, I want you to think about what you believe God wants for you. Think about your prayers and what you have asked God for. Think about the feelings that you have right now, where you are. Is it sadness? Is it grief? Is it joy? Is it dancing? Is it laughter? What is it? And then yield to it, surrender to it, allow it to do what it needs to do. Like I said, sometimes it's the end. Other time, God is pruning you for something new that's about to spring up. But there's still some things in you that have to be rearranged. Maybe there's a habit or obsession with something that you got to let go of in order to receive this new thing. Maybe it's a mindset, and you keep moving in that same frame of mind. But that's going to block you from your next blessing if you don't let it go, or if you don't change it or shift it in a certain way. You know what I mean? Sometimes we hold on to old patterns because it's a family thing, or because you find it comfortable, or you have some fear. But we have to learn how to let these things go. I am so sorry if you've been listening to background sounds. I had the television turned down low and it's still on. Forcing dead connections, ooh, that's a hard thing to let go of. Staying in old identities. Let me tell you, when you're a giver, people always expect you to do. Oh, could you babysit for me for a little while? It's Friday night. Why are you asking me to babysit? Because you want to go out, but you don't think I have to go out? And I'm not saying this to be mean or people trying to take advantage of you, but there may be the way you have been identified by people from the outside. And usually it's because we give them we maybe doing for folks, being a giver is something that makes you feel good. But then some relationships that always ask of you but never give back to you, they're not the healthy ones. And so that may be something, that identity of the one who always gives up herself for others, that may be something you need to shift for a minute. That not even for a minute. It may be something you need to put boundaries around. Sure, when you're given is a right thing. It feels good in you and not just an obligation. Um, there are also times in our lives where when there are certain roles that we have been playing that we have to end. There are certain dreams that no longer fit, and you have to give them up. They're gone. Mm-mm, 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 mm-mm. Let it go. Let it go. It's time to release it because you are different. You have grown. You no longer have that need anymore. And so you move on and become whatever else you're being led to be. We're always in a state of becoming. So it's not like, it's not like, well, now that I'm 45, now that you're 45, what? You're going to stop living? You don't have any more goals. You don't have any more dreams. There's nothing else to accomplish in life now that you're 45. I'm here to tell you, as long as you have breath in your body, there's something you can do. There's something you should want to accomplish or achieve. Or maybe there is a point in life where people just become satisfied with what is. And that probably is a big sense of satisfaction that people have. I don't know. I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn. I love to read. I love to be exposed to new things. And so when I feel like it's time to leave something alone, I find myself just leaving it alone. I, I don't have to I don't have to, let's say, I don't have to cut off all ties to it. Maybe I'll visit it, but I don't have to stay there either and assume that role or identity because that's the expectation of others. No, I'm done. I'm letting it go. Um, Stop forcing what God is pruning. And right now, we're going to take a little break. Okay, the Wolf Pack Fitness. Yes, yes, yes. Whew, feels good to work out, y'all. Get your exercise in. Get your exercise in. It may be the season for that, like it is for me. Season for working out, stretching your body, doing what you never wanted to do, being put into your zone of comfort, being taken out of it, and doing something that you're uncertain about, that you're unsure about, something you have to learn about, that because you have no knowledge of it, going to do it anyway. Learn, stretch yourself, become. Now, the next point I want to talk about is honoring the time by choosing the response the moment requires. Um, and we know there's a time to weep and a time to laugh. Every day ain't gonna be roses and sunshine. Every day is not gonna be giggles and laughter. Every day is just not going to be a day you feel like getting up and meeting the demands and challenges of the day. Sometimes we're just sad. Sometimes we're angry, and that's okay. Having a season of sadness may not mean you're in depression. There are some clear signs that someone is in depression, and you should check those things out if it's been a while and you're still sad. But we have those moments. We have those moments when we may question ourselves, and we do what I call self-inventory and find out that you're not happy with your life. You feel like you could be doing more, but you're not. Explore that. Sit with that. I think that's a beautiful thing to do. First of all, you're being honest with yourself about how you feel. And the other thing is, when you really sit down and do that self assessment and you look at the areas of your life you want to change or the things you're unsatisfied with, and then you make those changes, you come out on the other end of that rejoicing because you're happy, because you made a change, you did something about your circumstance. And that's a good feeling. You have to ask, what does this moment need me to do? Is it stillness? Because sometimes we moving so fast. When I thought I was having a heart attack, I realized the moment needed me to go sit down somewhere. And I started evaluating every time I got ready to fix my mouth and say yes. I started evaluating every time I went to put something in my mouth that I know was fried or salted or whatever. What am I doing? How can I ask God to fix this or take this away when I'm just sitting here feeding this demon, feeding the urge to eat, feeding this not just loathing around, laying around. I'm gonna get you, Kendall, for that. Just laying around being lazy all the time. And then talk about I'm tired. You haven't even done anything. You're tired of of sitting around. Sometimes we do things that just that aren't congruent with what we say we want to do. We need to sit with that and see what we need to change. In trying to discern your next move, that's when you understand how you need to move. Should I say something or should I just be quiet? I was told by some folks who don't like my politics that I should not be preaching politics. Now, there's a reason why we always saw prophets and kings together in the Bible. And the prophet always was a moral center for the king. And so, that's, I'm not going to get into that, but, I heard that. And my first thing was to say, first of all, you don't tell me what to preach. And second of all, If God gives it to me, I'm going to give it to you. When I got ready to do my next sermon, the thought that came to me was there's a reason Jesus spoke in parables. And I said, okay, so I can say it. And I can say it in a way that those who are there just to feel good won't even understand what I'm saying. I can say it in a way in which people who are closed off to what the message is. Let me just say, I think sometimes people decide what they want to hear out of the Bible and what they don't want to hear. And I've been contemplating this piece by Howard Thurman. He has a meditation, The Listening Ear. And I've really been focused on that and reading that and understanding that sometimes we don't want to hear. And so if you don't want to hear politics, I can talk about social justice in which in such a way you won't even hear what I'm saying because your ear is in attuned to that. Your ear you're hearing the words, and as long as I don't mention the president, I can talk about the president as long as I don't say the name, and I don't really want to talk about him. But I talk about, and I still have to talk about oppression and racism and sexism. I still have to talk about xenophobia and homophobia. I still talk about all of those things because those things harm people. And one thing we should be trying to do in the church is eradicating harm. And so when I still talk about those things and they sit there and smile, not understanding these are the things that we are doing as a government. These are the things, or maybe they do understand it. But I was able to communicate it in a different way so that I'm not compromising my values. But I had to sit with that. And I had to decide, do I use my voice? And I feel like my voice is my gift. So, yes, I have to use my voice, but I don't have to say it in that way. And I don't feel compromised because I'm still, as matter of fact, sometimes for me, it's even more powerful. It's even more powerful. And so I get it. And I get the parables. And no, I'm not speaking in parables because, that ain't my thing, but I am speaking differently. And for me, it was not compromise, it was maturity because you can't control what I do, but I can decide to do it differently. I'm still doing it. I'm just doing it differently because I don't want to harm anybody either. And so, um, understand that in the moment when your response to your season may not be the thing you think it should be, but you should do it anyway. Sometimes you need to be silent and just don't say anything because everything isn't worth your time and attention or breath, and just leave it alone. um I heard a speaker say one thing I don't go back and forth about is my freedom because it's not debatable. And you have to figure out what things in your life are not debatable. I don't talk about what I believe to a lot of people because it's not up for discussion. I don't care what your pastor told you. I don't care what you read in a book. My theology, my beliefs are mine. And do they coincide with some things that you hear in the church? Yes, they do. But they're based in love. They're based in grace and forgiveness and mercy. And they're based in me following the way of Christ, not just believing in Christ, but trying to live the way of Christ. Maybe everybody doesn't do that, and that's okay for you, but it's not okay for me. So I don't get into religious arguments with people. I will just say, "That's interesting. Okay, and that works for you." And those, yeah, okay, because it doesn't work for me. I don't need to argue about that. I don't need to argue about my personal beliefs. But if you want to know, I will offer you what it is I feel, what it is I believe, what it is I know. I'll share my story, my testimony with you, but I don't need to go back and forth with you because I don't need your permission. So that's why silence sometimes is not weakness, it is your strength and it is your power. Because once you start debating something, that means your way of thinking can be changed. Your way of showing up is arguable, and it's not, and it doesn't have to be. So give it up. I think the other point I want to make about this is sometimes you got to know when to surrender and when to fight, especially when you fighting God, because you ain't never gonna win that battle. But there's sometimes people in our lives, and there's some battles we can't win. I'm real quick to say, okay, God, you take this one because I don't have time for this. I don't want to fight this battle, or I can't fight this battle. And you need to know when you can't fight it. You need to know when you can't fight it. I remember I went to a school, I was transferred to the school I worked in closed. I went to this new school, and I was so looking forward to being there. And my first year was kind of hard. And got into, um, I guess it was a personality difference. No, it was me opening my mouth saying something when I probably should just shut up. And the person got mad and administrator decided that I needed to go. And so I got a bad evaluation. But the thing was, my previous evaluation from the principal was good. And so for my final evaluation, the vice principal, could not then s- g- supersede the principal. And so I was okay there. And actually, I think the principal ended up doing a final evaluation. She just came, I brought me in the office. She says, "Here, I did your evaluation, and whatever whatever it was, I was getting my raise." That's all I cared about. Am I getting my money? And so it was whatever the term was, acceptable, I passed. And so I went ahead and and I was like, you know what? I don't know why this person wanted to go through all this. I said, because I know what I did. I know I opened up my mouth and I pissed her off. I know that. I know that's why she's doing what she's doing. But I do want to come back here. So my prayer was, Lord, if this is where you mean for me to be, then please make it palatable. Somebody's got to go. And if these two women are going to be here, then I got to go. But if you want me here, I'm asking you, please remove them. And one, and it wasn't it wasn't my fault, but one was transferred and the other one was let go. Um, and she wasn't without a job. She went right back to the district she had come from. I spoke when I shouldn't have, but I came back and I was able to say, Lord, I don't think I can work for these women. That's just the bottom line. And all this back and forth going here, making these demands that are Not impossible demands, but not part of my job and how I do my job. And so, and they don't want to hear it. And it's hard when you're a social worker and you're being supervised by people who don't understand what social work is, but they want you to do things because it's expedient for them or makes them comfortable, makes their lives easier. But it's not, that's not my job. Okay. And so, you got to know when to fight and you got to know when to let go. I surrendered that battle to God because I couldn't do nothing with it. I really couldn't do anything with it. Ask your season, what do you need me to do? And do it. It's not about suffering unnecessarily. It's not about having to prove you can take it, but it's also not trying to make a round peg go in a square hole. It's not about that either. You need to know when to let go, when to make changes, and when something just ain't never gonna serve you. Last point I want to make to you: discernment makes room for trust. Trusting yourself to move correctly, trusting God, and trusting the moment. Trusting the growth that's being developed in you, trusting the process, trusting the timing, knowing that it's for a reason. I don't understand it right now, and God, I hope you make it known to me, but I don't understand it. Just show me what I need to do. Lead me where I need to be. Who do I need to talk to help me with this season? What the trusting helps you to do is maintain your calm, maintain the sense of who you are. It allows God to do the work that you can't do. It allows you room and flexibility to even make mistakes. Sometimes, in order for a plant to yield a flower or a tree to yield fruit, and the soil needs to be turned over. Sometimes you just got to do some work in that garden and let it happen. Trust that it's happening and you're going to come out of it better because you always do, don't you? And even if you're in a season that seems to be breaking you, understand that in the breaking, there's a breakthrough, and you're going to break through that moment. Think about an egg. We got to break some shells in order to eat. You have to break some things in your life sometimes in order to move ahead. There may be some walls or barriers that need to be broken. There may need to be some relationships that have to be broken. It's okay. The timing is not ours. That we can't control. We can only control our response and how we behave in the moment so that we can get through to the other side, so we can let the moment build us and mold us and shape us. And that's what happens. We don't need to force anything. But what we want to do is come into alignment with our purpose, come into alignment with our gifts and our talents, come into alignment with our calling. We're all called to something. Some listeners are in growing season. Some are in a grieving season. You may be in a season of holy release where you got to let stuff go. You may be in a season where it feels like you're in a valley of the dry bones. Everything looks dead. Nothing looks alive. But what you can't see is the underground. You can't see that there was a seed buried in you that is coming to the surface. You can't see that. We don't know what's growing until the ground breaks and it bursts through. There is a new day coming. It's just a season. It may seem long, but it's just a season. And knowing how to respond is your work. And knowing how to let that season do what it needs to do in you and to you is your work. Sitting and discerning and naming it, praying about it, working on it. That's your work. With that season's timing, you have nothing to do with that. And so we deal, we move, we pray, we work, we cry, we laugh, we do whatever we need to do in that season for as long as that season demands. And then we come out better, hopefully, transformed, maybe, renewed, probably, but we won't be the same. That we won't. Let me give you some reflection questions before I close. Um, just you think, what are you trying to force that maybe that you need to release? Think about that. Suppose what you're going through is not punishing, but is pruning. Think about what it is God may be trying to snip off so that you can grow. What is it in your life? Maybe there's just one aspect that's been stagnant and you need to let it go. Think about that. God is not asking you to control the season, it's just asking you to discern what it is. Grieve honestly if that's what season you're in. Release and let it go faithfully, knowing that it's okay. Something better is coming. If it's time to be still, then do that. Close your mouth, shut up, and be still. Be still and know. Be still and know that God is in control. If it's time to grow, then do that. Stand tall, put your shoulders back, your chest out, your chin up, and grow. Do the hard work, lay the plan, do the preparation, read whatever you need to, research whatever you have to, and grow. I hope you heard me today. Somebody's in a season and you've been wondering why God is doing this to you. Trust God. Stop forcing. Stop getting in the way. Stop trying to control everything. It's not for you. Remember, if you don't release it, you can't get nothing new. And some old things need to go. I want y'all to be blessed. I want you to discern. Be a discerning person. Know what season you're in. Be honest about it. And be in the moment with it. Y'all have a good time. Enjoy the weekend that's coming up. Enjoy this new month that is starting tomorrow. Hello, May. And with May comes more flowers, more good weather, and holidays, we're going, being outside and enjoying the sun and, having Sunday brunches and wearing sundresses. So I'm looking forward to all of that good stuff for the summer. So anyway, be blessed, be good, be you. Talk to you later.
Been waiting in the water, just trying to survive. But God said there's more for me, more than staying alive. I'm stepping into power, into what